We're opening up the Peacock and Williamson mailbag for week 2. What lessons did we learn from week 1? And should we just throw out what we thought we knew from the offseason on today's P&W mailbag?
NFL analyst Brian Peacock and former NFL scout Matt Williamson bring you expert NFL analysis every day in less than 30 minutes. Get an inside look at the NFL on the field and in the front office with elite breakdowns to next-level analysis and in-depth information only for the real NFL fans. This is Peacock and Williamson, and it starts now.
Welcome to the Peacock and Williamson NFL Show. Brian Peacock alongside Matt Williamson. Thanks for being here, and thanks for being involved in this week's mailbag. Apologies in advance to the questions we didn't get to. Got a ton from week 1. A lot more questions than answers, I'm guessing, from our own selves, Matt, and from our listeners in week 1. And the big question I think we're going to start with is what do you throw out from your priors and what you thought about the teams in the league, and what do you hold on to from week 1? I do want to tell the folks out there that this episode is sponsored by Prize Picks. Download the Prize Picks app today and use code LOCKEDONNFL to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. And we got a couple of questions that are, a lot of our questions today are about, what do we believe from week 1? Joey Bag of Donuts, who love Joey, always listening to the show, always tweeting in good questions, says, they say the biggest improvement is from game 1 to game 2, but how many adjustments do teams actually make? Or is it more a wake-up call to individual players to be like, yeah, this is real now. Let's ramp it up. Let's get going.
I don't know about that. I don't think it's the latter. I think the energy and enthusiasm in week 1 is through the roof. If you're around a team, if you're at training camp like I was, you can tell they get ramped up for preseason, to play somebody different and not practice and bang against their buddies that they eat lunch with, Yeah. So I think whenever it comes to real season, enthusiasm or taking it seriously isn't a problem at all. What I do think is a problem, or two things that really stand out to me, is none of these players have played 50, 60, 100% of the snaps, 50, 60 snaps or 100% of the snaps. And O linemen in particular, I think of that, and D linemen rotate, but they take a banging and it takes a lot out of them too. Receivers can take some routes off here and there, things like that. Running backs will be in and out of games, but the big people in particular, I think, can really wind down in week 1. And I know it's only a week removed, but I do think it's noticeably better to get a full game under your belt just from a stamina, putting up with the rigors of 60 minutes of football at this level. And then the other thing, and again, I always tie this back to the Steelers, but it was true for so many teams that Steelers didn't know what to expect from the Jets. There's no tape. There's a new quarterback. There's 2 new coordinators. There's a new head coach. I don't envy those teams that have to prep for a team that you really have nothing to go on except for strong hunches. Well, this is how the Lions did it, so that means the Jets are going to do it this way, or this is how Ben Johnson did it with the Lions. That means the new OC is going to do it exactly the same. Well, they definitely aren't. Head coaches have their own ideas. They have different Fields and Goff couldn't be any different. They're not going to run the same offense, so you don't know what you're getting.
Right, and then at halftime in week 1, you're like, well, that didn't happen, so let's crumple that up.
We've worked 100 hours on our game plan. Let's throw it in the fire. Yeah, right. Exactly. So I think that's huge. At least you have a game tape to watch of your opponent now.
Yeah, that is huge. It's the adjustments to the adjustments. I think it's a big part of the NFL. So JDS kind of follows that up with, at what point do we throw what we thought in the offseason out the window and count what we actually see in these games? And he throws out 3 weeks. If you start to see a pattern of 3 weeks of games, that's probably enough to start believing in what you're seeing. One game or one half or one really good quarter is not enough for me to change my priors, but maybe I'm just a little bit stubborn in that way, man.
See, I was going to say, I know I'm stubborn, that I feel like I hang on to priors for so long. And maybe because what we do for a living more so than our listeners, because we love it, but we're forced to talk about football when there's no football. So we talk ourselves into knowing things we may not know. You know what I mean?
And we believe teams maybe more than we should, because just because the team does a thing doesn't mean they did it right.
However, I do think, especially a quarterback, some of your questions get answered pretty quick. Like, oh, Flacco and Rodgers look like they can still play. Now, I don't know if they can for 12 more weeks, but they're not shot. You know what I mean? Like, or maybe more importantly, Ward or McCarthy or somebody we've barely seen, Penix, like, oh, they look like they belong. It's not like when Zach Wilson took over and it's like, oh, no. Sometimes you see these guys like, that guy looks horrendous.
Well, I think a great example of that is Justin Fields. Early in his career, it's like, get the ball out of your hands, dude.
Yeah, come on, man.
Right. And he looked the best he'd ever looked in week 1. Do we believe and we saw it with Sam Darnold early in his career, just like, oh no. And admitting, unfortunately for him, he's caught on mic'd up saying that he was seeing ghosts on the sideline. It was like, well, it looks like you were seeing ghosts, and now we know for sure you're seeing ghosts, and you're admitting it in the middle of a football game. It's not great. He looks like a much different quarterback now than he did then. The same thing seems to be happening for Justin Fields, another high first-round draft pick. We got a few questions about Justin Fields here, and pull up the right question. Thanks to the listeners, and everyone's excited.
Yeah, they're flooded us. People are psyched.
A ton of questions here.
Spread the word on the pod, hit that subscribe, do all that good stuff too while you're at it.
That's right. Well, Paul puts it this way. Do the Steelers regret letting Justin Fields get away? Did they lose a potential long-term solution in favor of a comp pick and a short-term answer at quarterback?
I guess that's to be determined, but I mean, I can pull back the curtain that Rodgers was not their first choice. I think Fields was. Now, I don't think that was Fields or bust, or they were brokenhearted when he went to the Jets. I mean, I think Wilson was never in the conversation. And I don't know if they knew the availability of Rodgers at the time, like when you're talking about like the season ends, I'm talking about like January. I mean, early in the preseason. And I think that they were pretty excited about bringing back Fields at the right price. And I've said this a lot this week because I've been asked that a lot, obviously, since the game. Unfortunately for Fields had to run an offense here that was built for Russell Wilson. The Jets offense is built for Fields, and frankly, probably built better than the offense he ran last year in Pittsburgh too, in terms of construction and using his legs and all that good stuff. So it's kind of a hand in glove situation too. In hindsight, I don't think the Steelers would change anything they did. I think they're really, really excited about Rodgers. They're excited about next year's drafting a quarterback situation. And I don't know that they would, give Fields $5 million more a year to go back on how things went. But I will say that he was strongly in the mix and was probably option 1 at the right price. And maybe they would have drafted Milroe or something if they would have, they wouldn't have just been Fields,
So the Steelers liked Fields enough to bring him back. They just got outbid essentially.
Basically. And I also think, I almost know that I think the Jets said, we want you to be the opening day starter. And I don't think the Steelers could even guarantee that.
Like, we'll bring you back, but there's still going to be.
Not sure what else.
And, if you're Fields, you probably didn't love that there was another guy there last year either that you had to, fight with to get those snaps. And so that's huge for, I would do the same thing if I was Fields. But
here, it's a better opportunity.
Here's more money and you're the starter.
Right.
Yes.
Okay.
You think?
Sure. Do you think, it's way too early for at Williamson NFL to ask you this question, but could you see him being like a long-term starter?
He's clearly talented enough.
Yeah.
The thing was always just like, can you play with timing? Do you see it clear enough? You saw some of the throws, his athleticism, and he's so I'm never going to slam the door on a player like that, a young player at that. Now
you mentioned Darnold, late in his career. Yeah. It's about that point in Fields' career.
With the right teams, I do. Let's go this way with it. I do think that there's at least half of the time a team can do more damage to the development of a prospect, especially a quarterback, than that guy just being garbage from the start. If there's a bust of a quarterback,
I see what you're saying.
And sometimes a great quarterback is going to figure it out and going to be great no matter what, even if he's in a bad situation, and save a franchise as a first pick in the draft. And sometimes he's going to be a bust no matter what, right? I think a lot of times you can do a lot of damage to a young player early in his career. And that
No
could have
doubt.
been something that was partially happening with Justin Fields in his landing spot and other quarterbacks, Darnold. You get drafted to a bad team in most cases.
Mayfield.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah, they went into rough situations, and then year after year was something different and a lot to overcome. Last thing on Fields, I can tell you, work ethic, character, intelligence aren't the what's holding them back. They're all strengths,
That was my thing in the draft with Fields. It's like, okay, this guy's the most athletic of all these quarterbacks. He's got as good of an arm as any of these guys. He throws a wonderful deep ball, and he's smart and works hard.
That's not much left.
What else do you want, right? Like
but if you can't throw with anticipation at all,
it's like, well, he'll figure it. If he's smart and works hard, he'll figure that out, right? Or he just can't quite see it, or relies too much on his legs. Is just going to take more time. Yeah. So maybe it just took a little bit more time. Had to be the right offense that was more catered for him too, because I think he got dropped into other people's offenses more so than he was allowed to, have an offense built for him. And maybe that's the way things are going for him now with the New York Jets. Are the Jets the biggest stock up team? We talked a lot of stock up, stock down yesterday. We got to put our flag on one football team that we believe the most in after week 1 that has the biggest amount of helium around the NFL. And are the Chiefs potentially in trouble? End of a dynasty. Next. This episode of Peacock and Williamson is brought to you by Mazda. You could just move through life, or you can move with purpose. You can find the things that move you. It's your choice. You could choose to get out there, choose your pull. You could choose to go for it, like really go for it. Choose something that moves you. Mazda crafts cars Mazda crafts cars for those that choose to do more than simply move. Mazda, move and be moved. This episode is also brought to you by 5-Hour Energy. If you are a golfer, you know about the transfusion. It's the most popular drink in golf, and it's time to fuel up and turn it up with 5-Hour Energy Transfusion. This grape, ginger, and lime flavored shot brings the iconic taste of a golf course favorite to a non-alcoholic boost, perfect for sinking birdies or making great memories with friends on the course. It's a hole-in-one for your energy game, and it's not just for golf. Whether you need to power your back nine or just get through your day, whether you're out on the course, need that extra push, 5-Hour Energy Transfusion delivers the clubhouse flavor you love without ever leaving the green. What's the most ridiculous thing you've ever had on a golf course? There's a lot of weird shots out there on a golf course. I've had a lot of weird stuff, but nothing has actually helped me and helped my game and helped me get through the back nine more than a 5-Hour Energy shot. So golf is all about good times with good people and good flavors. The grape, ginger, lime flavor of a 5-Hour Energy Transfusion gives you the best parts of your clubhouse go-to without leaving the course or chasing down the beverage cart, and no alcohol as well, which you think it might help you on the course. It does not help you on the course. So tee up that trip. Visit 5thewin.com for full rules and entry. No purchase necessary. Excludes the Masters tournament. Ends October 31st, 2025. Amp up the fun even more. Just buy Snap and enter for a chance to win a dream golf trip for 2 to any golf tournament in the USA. 5thewin.com for rules and entry. Ends October 31st, 2025. Are the Jets then the biggest stock up team from what our offseason priors were, Matt, in the entire NFL? If we're believing what we saw in week 1, or is it another football team? Is it a good team that?
I think the Colts are the low-hanging fruits, but I'm going to blame Miami more than praise Indy. But they put me, they obviously made a statement. Now, I think a lot of it depends of where did you start in everyone's mind last week. Like, I was really high on the Packers, but I didn't think they'd wipe the floor with the Lions. So do they go from very good to awesome? That's a pretty good jump. But I think the Jets are the poster child. But I would also throw in the Browns and Saints as consensus bottom feeders that were certainly better in week one than I expected. And I think the Jets is the most sustainable of the three.
The thing that I think about with the Browns is the Flacco Browns. What year was that? 2020?
2 years ago, he was with
the 2023 Flacco Browns were a problem.
They were.
And can they get close to that level? They've got talented players on the defensive side of the ball too.
Mm-hmm.
And
defense played well, and right.
I was not high on the Browns necessarily, but I was much lower on the Saints. I don't know where those teams are going to end up this year, but I think that week one Fields Jets, I think they would be the biggest stock up. By the way, Scott asked this question after week one: what team or player is the biggest stock up? You have a player that might be the number one biggest stock up in the entire NFL. I think after that last segment of talking about Fields and the Jets and how they looked, I just was not excited about it. But I'm buying in a little bit on the Jets not being a disaster this year.
Yeah.
Like that.
Now, some of these are guys I already loved, Justin Herbert, but is he going to be like an MVP type guy now?
That's a really good one.
Yeah.
Because there's been so many people that have excused a lot for him. And I think, it's similar with Trevor Lawrence, where it's like, okay, well, let's see that thing that we're supposed to see, right? Mm-hmm. Let's see that thing. Because everyone talks about it, but for Herbert, I wasn't even thinking of Herbert. That's a really good one, though, because people like him a lot, but could he be tier one guy?
Right. I was saying, could he be right there with Burrow and Lamar and those guys?
Like we're talking about him as an MVP candidate after the year. They just went and beat the Kansas City Chiefs in week one, and he looked awesome.
Now everyone thinks the Chiefs stink, which I know is like the next topic we're going to talk about. But Herbert's pretty great, and he was my fifth quarterback before the season, and that's only one game. But I think it's really telling that everyone on the planet thinks the Chargers are run. Really, the second half of last year, and certainly week one of this year, they're like one of the most pass-happy teams in the league. Harbaugh has a philosophy, but he's also likes winning and has this awesome quarterback.
Right. He also likes to win. Yeah. And they did draft the first round running back. By the way, one thing we had not talked about this week, stock up. How about Joe Alt seamlessly just moving over to the left tackle where he's not
nothing.
He's not going to move from, by the way, whenever
that's sticky for Slater, I would feel.
Yeah, whenever Slater comes back, he's either going to be on a different team or at right tackle.
Yeah, but why ever move Alt,
Yeah.
It bothers me that so many of these tackles the last couple of years have had to switch sides from college. Like Latham looks so much better back at right tackle, even for Tennessee. And like all these guys, like, can't we just draft them for the position they played?
There was a weird season because there were so many good offensive linemen in last year's draft, 2024. They all flipped sides.
So many. Yeah, it's been common lately. First round pick, we'll just move to the other side. It's like, why don't you take a right tackle then if you need a right tackle,
So to answer the question, the Jets and Justin Herbert. I think those are good answers.
Those are good ones. Yeah. My eyes are opened for greater things for both.
King Canadian says, I know this is a topic that people get mad at, but does Andy Reid hire too many yes men and not enough new voices? He says our offense. So this is coming from a Kansas City Chiefs fan. Our offense has got stagnant the last few years. Look, even the last 2 years under Nagy, even if it was any other quarterback than Mahomes, we would be a 9-8, 8-9 team. What do you think?
I think there's some truth to that. I mean, like you could say they don't protect well enough. They don't have Tyreek Hill. They don't stretch the field like they used to. They become a more efficient way of playing offense. But a lot of that's are also compliments to Mahomes' maturity,
And how about Nagy being the guy we just talked about, ruining Fields early in his career? Maybe he's just not that good of an offensive coordinator.
Wasn't a very good head coach either.
Right.
Maybe he's just not particularly great at his job.
And did Mahomes got him that job in the first place?
True,
right?
Exactly.
How good Mahomes was right away.
I would have to be close to the organization, but I do think there are many, many examples in the NFL where a guy, Reed, for example, no one's going to tell him no. He has unlimited job security. He's one of the best that's ever done it. I'm not taking anything away from him. He's a Hall of Fame coach in a heartbeat. But so was Belichick, and at the end, nobody told him no, and things crumbled.
He needed a no man.
Right, exactly. Jerry Jones, Al Davis, Tom Landry at the end. I mean, like any of these phenomenal coaches, the last end usually doesn't go well because it's not a one-man job. You got to trust people and not just have a bunch of yes men. And I don't know if that's happening in Kansas City or not, but I'm always open to the fact that the end could crumble pretty quick because someone has unlimited power. There's a czar,
They're stacking up some oddball decisions. And I don't know if it's, game plan, if it's offense. There's certainly some personnel stuff that's gotten weird. There was the Clyde Edwards. It's kind of started with the Clyde Edwards-Helaire draft.
They also cut a lot of corners on character guys, which I don't love because when the going gets bad, it gets worse when you have bad people in the locker.
That's been an Andy Reid thing, too.
Which is great when it works.
Yeah.
But when the going gets tough, that's when it comes.
Doesn't catch up. Right.
Yeah.
Never replaced Tyreek Hill.
No.
Tried, though. Speed.
This Worthy injury could hurt them.
And that's kind of the Worthy thing, too, is like, man, you like all this speed, but he weighs 165 pounds.
And doesn't play like Tyreek.
And you bump into your own guy and get hurt when you're a skinny little dude, right?
Right. Good point.
So if you're 6'2", 220, you probably are not injured from that hit.
I bet Terrell Owens doesn't get injured from that hit.
Right.
DK Metcalf or AJ Brown. Right. Yeah.
So anyway, look, it was one game against a good team in the Chargers, a well-coached team. I'm not going to bury the Chiefs right now. And Mahomes actually played pretty well and made a bunch of
played real well. Yeah.
So, you've got that. And Reed is still a football coach. Maybe Nagy's not great shakes. Maybe the personnel stuff has gotten weird in some ways. But I think the Chiefs they're going to be just fine. So I'm not going to bury the Chiefs yet.
So what are they like? They were 15-2 last year, right?
Right. Oh, so they're only 12 games this year. They're still a playoff football team.
So they have 4 losses going back to week 1 of last year. One of them was a couple days ago. One of them was a Super Bowl. That's still pretty good.
Yeah.
It kind of reminds me of like Brady at the end with the Patriots. People are just sick of them. So they hope that the window's shutting.
Right. And you still got Reed, you still got Mahomes, and you still got Spags, and you got plenty of talent on the defense.
Jones and yeah.
That's definitely one where I'm not ready to make any proclamations about the Chiefs after one loss in a week.
It'd be nice though if somewhere in their last 3 drafts or so they find their next great one, whether it's Worthy or Rashee Rice or the left tackle that should have fallen to them. Like the guys are counting on have been around a while.
Absolutely. More from the Peacock and Williamson mailbag, and we're continuing with the week 1 overreactions. Which ones do we believe? Which ones do we not? Next. Today's episode of Peacock and Williamson is brought to you by FanDuel, America's #1 sports book. The NFL season is here, and FanDuel is making sure you're ready for kickoff in week 2 with a can't-miss offer right now. New customers can bet just $5, and if your first bet wins, you'll get $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. FanDuel's been sponsoring this podcast and the entire network for a long time. I've never seen a $300 bonus, so now's the time. If you want to get involved in FanDuel, $300 extra to bet on weekly lines that you can find not only week 2, but week 18 lines. Tons of prop bets for 2025, college football as well, baseball, basketball, football, any sport, you name it, you can find it at FanDuel. So are you ready to play? Download the FanDuel app now by visiting FanDuel.com to get started. That's FanDuel.com to place your first $5 bet. I'm going to go to Michael, who has a bunch of week 1 overreactions. Some of them we've already talked about here. He says, Bills, Packers, Super Bowl, Dolphins, Saints, first 2 picks in the draft. Chiefs missed the playoffs for the first time ever in the Mahomes era. Caleb Williams is a bust. Kevin O'Connell, coach of the year, and Josh Allen, player of the year. Where's the lie? Let's go slowly through it. We kind of got a combo here. Josh Allen, player of the year, Bills, Packers, Super Bowl. Those are 2 things I could buy right now.
No, I can buy those. Yeah. That to me is not far-fetched. I could have bought that a month ago. And certainly after the Parsons trade, I could buy that.
And just solidified a little bit more probably in week 1. But
yeah. Although I bet the Eagles are saying, hey, we were pretty good in week 1 too. Don't forget about us,
everybody is stocked down on the Dolphins. Or is it that bad of a situation that they might be picking 1-2 with the New Orleans Saints being that other team with the first two picks in the draft, Matt?
I could see it. I could absolutely see it. I think there's some fragility to their O-line, secondary, things that are, when they collapse hard. And I think Tua needs the O-line. And what if there's a coaching change in week 6 and the wheels are just off and Tyreek Hill's on another team or causing problems, or, I could write the story where it spirals pretty bad and they win 4 games and are picking pretty high.
And they have an opportunity to turn things around here. Again, it was 1 week, but this is an overreactions take. And I'd probably buy it more than I would sell it at this point. Tua looks so bad, man.
So bad. Yeah. The one overreaction he mentioned, though, that a lot of people brought up in the mailbag, Caleb Williams is terrible. I don't see it that way.
No,
I thought he looked way better. I mean, he did some suspect things and held the ball, but didn't take sacks. And I thought he looked fast and elusive and comfortable and has a good group around him. And I came away from that game higher on Williams than I was going in.
Well, and I'll go to one of our other listeners, great handle at Old Man Shouting, says the Bears situation seems dire with their quarterback.
Yeah,
as bad as the eye test says it is, I didn't think the eye test was that bad. Ben Johnson and Caleb Williams seem like the worst type of match possible. Sure, Caleb had a string of completions, but many of those didn't seem to be inside the offensive scheme or timing, which is the big thing. And that's kind of been Caleb Williams.
A decent point.
But that's what Mahomes did, right? And that's why Mahomes, nobody wanted to draft him super high in the draft because he was like, we don't know what to do this guy. He does weird stuff that might not be within the timing of the play, and everyone applauds him for it and loves him for it. Caleb Williams does it and plays pretty well doing it, and people think that he can't play in the timing of the scheme. I think it's much better than it looked with Justin Fields that couldn't play within the timing of the scheme earlier in his career. I thought he's making plays. I thought he was, he's quick about his wits on the football field.
Yeah.
I loved that first drive, which are clearly the scripted plays for Ben Johnson and how the offense looked there. There's some ups and downs a little bit later in the game, but I watched that game and my eye test thought he looked good.
Improved. Yeah. And he looked comfortable, improved. There's still things to work on, and the beginning of the game is better than the end, but I think there's a decent point, and I've thought this since the hire. I don't know if Johnson and Williams are perfect for each other. I mean, he's not Goff. He's not a paint-by-numbers quarterback. I understand that, but, I mean, I think Johnson knew that when he took the job, too.
He's more talented than Goff, too.
Oh, yeah.
And so is it a good match because Caleb Williams needed just 10% more of let's play more in structure.
Right. I was kind of thinking that's going to happen.
And then Ben Johnson's like, and now I get this guy that can do all the other stuff too.
Right. Maybe I don't get as much Goff as I'm used to, but I get a little Mahomes sprinkled in.
Yeah.
A little bit of extra sweetener in there,
Kevin O'Connell, Coach of the Year. I love this one. I don't think Kevin O'Connell gets enough credit for how good
I think he's like a top 5 guy.
Yeah.
Already. I mean, you talk about recent drafts. Look at the Vikings drafts. I'm not even going to include McCarthy because it's too early. Adolfo Menza has not drafted well at all. I mean, they're one of the worst drafting teams the last couple of years, and they just keep getting better.
Yeah, I mean, overcoming bad
drafts, right?
How many quarterbacks have all looked good?
Exactly. I mean, I think O'Connell's absolutely one of the best coaches in the league.
Chiefs missed the playoffs for the first time ever in the Mahomes era.
I'm not there.
No, I'm not there yet either.
I don't think there's 7 real strong teams in the AFC. I mean, that means like the Jags or the Steelers or the Bengals or Indy. I mean, like, I like the Chiefs' chances over all those teams.
I'm with you. I'm pausing on that. There's just too much that the Chiefs have going for them, even if things are a little weird. That's one that's going to, come back in October, and if they don't look good, and like Mahomes,
do they go from 15 to 8 wins? Probably not.
Yeah, exactly. that season is still a playoff season, I think, for the Chiefs. They just have too much going for them. Coaching.
Well, they could be declining. The window could be closing abruptly. We may have that conversation and be like, boy, the Bills and Ravens are well past them now.
Maybe they barely get in. Maybe they're a wild card team even. Maybe the Chargers win the division.
Yeah. I can I'll buy those scenarios, but missing the playoffs. I mean, they're not one of the top 7 teams in the AFC. I'm not there yet.
What are your overreactions? Let us know at BD Peacock, at Williamson NFL. If you're watching football this weekend and you got some thoughts, hit us with those mailbag questions for next week and drop them either on Twitter or in the YouTube comments. Subscribe while you are there. And Matt and I back tomorrow making picks for the rest of week 2 right here. Peacock and Williamson.